What's up? What you got? A Celtics hat on?
Of course, man. Listen, man.
Okay.
Big Celtics guy.
All right.
Oh, this is awesome, man. All right. Yeah, I got my buddy here because we were locked out of my studio, so I had to get my buddy here to unlock it, and then obviously he's doing the same thing as me. We're both pursuing sports media and broadcasting, so I was like, why don't you just hop on? You know, you can maybe get a little words of wisdom from our guy Drape.
Right. No, I'm glad we're able to do this, man. I'm glad I can help you guys out.
Of course,
man. We appreciate it, man. This is going to be awesome. Can't wait.
I know. I'm excited. So I mean, we might as well get started without further ado. So, I'll let you introduce yourself. So, Kyle, if you want to take it away.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kyle Draper, currently play-by-play announcer for the Sacramento Kings, but maybe I'm best known for my time in Boston working for NBC Sports Boston on the pre- and post-game show with my guy Brian Scalabrine, Big Perk, covering the Celtics, even back to the KG years, but so many great memories there. But now I'm working in Sacramento with the Kings.
Absolutely. And I mean, yeah, me and Jacob here, that's how we got to know you. Like we grew up with you, and now, that's what we're doing. We're pursuing the same thing that, I think it was like you guys inspired us, you and Scal. And
absolutely. No doubt about it. We always crack jokes of how, NBC Boston always, called games a certain way. And I mean, the memories that, you guys build from, even your time in Boston, now in Sacramento, I think it's just awesome. Kids that are interested, you don't forget it. So it's awesome.
Yeah, what's interesting about my time in Boston, which I love, man, it was the best time of my career, and working with Scal, everything you saw on TV, none of it was scripted or anything. It was just two guys sitting there having fun talking about sports. And I remember working with NBC Sports Boston, and one of the things they wanted to do with their pre- and post-game show, fellas, is they wanted it to be like TNT inside the NBA with Charles and Shaq and all those guys. And I felt like from a regional, local standpoint, we came as close as anybody to that.
Absolutely. That's what it felt like, because when I have the opportunity, when I see that, because on YouTube TV, you get the chance, you get the option to either pick the local broadcast, you could pick, TNT, ABC, those big, like, the mainstream media. So I'm always picking you guys. So whether it was you back in the day, and nowadays we have Scal and Drew Carter, Abby Chin still there, like Eddie House. Yeah. Like I'm throwing those guys on 10 out of 10 times. Like I would much rather watch those guys. I feel like I built not that, you guys know us personally, but like I feel like we have a bit of a relationship.
Oh, for sure.
And it's awesome.
And I want to add something, like the fact that you said comparing to like how the TNT crew is, to be yourself and to be outgoing throughout that process and more natural. Honestly, I think it shows true character. And I think it makes the shows better.
Absolutely.
Like, you know what I mean? You get to see true reactions, and it's almost like no filter in a way. It's cool that, players and reporters are able to, express how they truly feel. So it's awesome. It's awesome.
And touching up on your, you were talking about your past, I would love to hear any fond memories you have both with Boston and now with Sacramento that you have.
I'll start with Boston, man. I was there, I think 11 years. So got to cover the guys for 11 seasons. And from a broadcasting standpoint and a pre and post game standpoint, and I'll talk about the games coming up in a second. Just having our studio, I don't know if you guys remember, our studio was across the street at East Ticket, and just being there and having a big win and the fans coming banging on the window and everything, like, it was so electric, man. And it was really the best times of my professional career, fellas, believe it or not, like in terms of the most fun, like it was amazing. And just, it was one of those things too, man. And I tell people, this to this day, I would drive into the Garden Park where I park. I threw my headphones on. I had my own game day playlist that I would listen to. And so when I hopped out the car and I walked to the studio or walked into the Garden, it was like I felt like I was a player or something, getting my game face on, you know? And so, you know, Celtics fans, man, some of the best in the world, just the passion that they had and the love. Because I don't know if you guys know, originally I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So I'm a Philly guy, you know, I'm like Phillies, I like the Eagles, you know, and for you guys to welcome me out there in New England, man, and to be able to fit in, because as you know, that's a hard market to work in, man. Like I feel proud that I was able to, you know, make my mark there and actually survive, because I know how you guys chew people up and spit them out. So yeah. So it was good. You know, from a game standpoint, I go back, obviously covering NBA finals. My first finals was in 2010. And man, that was tough. I know. Everybody. Celtics should have had that one, dude. They had if Big Perk doesn't get hurt, Celtics win that series. But for me as a basketball fan, to cover a Game 7 NBA Finals, Lakers Celtics, truly amazing. One of the highlights of my career. And then I could fast forward, you know, some of those Pierce and LeBron James battles that they used to have. I mean, you know, I was there in Game 6, I think it was, when LeBron scored his 45, and like just like these are monumental moments. And then how about Isaiah Thomas? His sister had just passed away. You know, his sister China had just passed away. He comes out and drops 53, I think it was, or 51 against Miami. Yeah. And so, like, just those memories, man, I get chills thinking about, you know, walking into the Garden and that fan base, man. It was truly amazing.
Absolutely. That is insane to me, to think like all these things that I just remember watching at home, and like I'm having all these emotional memories. It's like you were literally as close as you could possibly be. It's just, it's so crazy to me.
How about this, fellas? Tatum's dunk on LeBron in the playoffs. You know, you got a young Jason Tatum, you know, a rookie, you know, dunking on LeBron, and just, you know, just seeing, and I'll say it right now, just seeing the evolution of Tatum and Jaylen Brown and my boy Al Horford. Like, you know, just seeing those guys mature. You know, Tatum's one of my favorite players, man. Sorry to see him go down like he did, but he'll be back. Yeah, he'll be all right. But man, just the energy of the fan base, man, the passion, the knowledge of that fan base too was, you know, a career high for me.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. And I don't, if you have anything from Sacramento that you'd love to touch up on, I'm sure you have many fond memories. You've been there. You've been there quite a few years now.
Yeah, I just finished my 5th season, man. You believe that? It's time flies. It's crazy.
5 years ago.
Time flies. What are we doing?
All right. So we know Sacramento has not had much postseason success. They haven't even been in the postseason a whole lot. I keep it real with you guys. But probably, you know, maybe my best memory in my entire career is being there when the Kings snapped the playoff drought and they had their first ever, you know, first playoff game in 16 plus seasons against Golden State. That game 1, and just being a part of that and just having the whole city. I remember just driving around Sacramento, man, in Northern California. You got Sacramento Kings flags hanging from people's cars, out from their houses. And you got to understand, this is a franchise that hasn't had a lot of success. Right. And so I used to tell people, I'm bringing my Boston success and trying to teach you guys how to be winners out here in Sacramento. And for them to make the playoffs, man, that was amazing. That was truly the highlight of my career. Just like the goosebumps and being there's a clip on YouTube too, I think, of, you know, me when the team ran out. I'm doing pre and post game. The team ran onto the court and I'm doing the show, and the emotions got so overwhelming. I just stood up, I dropped the mic, and I'm just like waving a towel. Like it was truly amazing, fellas. And so that's a great memory. You know, I was there when, you know, De'Aaron Fox scored 60. That was truly amazing. And so even though the squad hasn't, you know, had postseason success, a lot of good memories there.
Absolutely. And you were there for the Light the Beam days. You know, that's when they started it up. And I absolutely love that Sacramento, that they do that. And even with you, when you left Boston and you went to join Sacramento, it's something about us Boston guys. It's just, we love, like, I've become more of a tiny bit of a fan of Sacramento, because you have went and gone over there because I built this relationship with you, even though like you didn't even know who I was.
Right, right. You know, I'll tell you, you know, in terms of broadcasting, fellas, I tell young people all the time, and this is something I try to do, you know, in my day-to-day work. You know, there are a lot of people that can do the job, but the people who stand out, the people who are memorable, you get to feel them as a personality. You get to feel who they are. You know, I don't want to be some robot. I don't want to be some, you know, just, you know, carbon copy of everybody else. You know,
Right.
I want to be Kyle. I want to be Drapes. And I feel like, you know, what I'm hearing you guys say is that, you know, when you watch me, when you watch Scal, Big Perk, whoever it is, it was like you got to see us. We weren't playing a role. We weren't, you know, being some actors or anything. That's just who we are out there.
Absolutely. And that leads me to one of my questions is what is some advice that you may have for guys like us who are trying to be broadcasters to hopefully get a position like you one day?
Let me give you two pieces of advice. And these are things that I've learned, you know, through my career. The first one is get started as soon as possible, whether it's behind the scenes, whether it's, you know, doing stats, whatever it may be. Get started as soon as possible, because the best way to get experience is to be a part of something where you have access to the equipment. You're at the games, whatever, and then you can create your reel and then you're going on. So I would say get started as soon as possible. Even if you're in college, shoot, if you've got high schoolers out there watching this, you know, go to your local TV station, your local radio station, volunteer, get started as soon as possible. The second thing, and this is probably the most important advice, fellas, I'm going to give you right now. Be yourself. And I'll tell you why. When I first started doing play-by-play with the Sacramento Kings, I thought, man, I'm trying to be like Mike Gorman. I want to be like Mike Breen. And then I realized, like, no, Kyle, you got the job, like I was saying earlier, because of you. And I said to myself, if I'm going to succeed or if I'm going to fail, I'm going to go down being me. Can you imagine trying to emulate Mike Gorman and then it doesn't work out and you're like, that wasn't even who I was? And so you, like I said earlier, people are attracted to people. There's a reason why, and I'm not saying be this guy, but there's a reason why Stephen A. Smith is so successful. There's a reason why some of these, Kevin Harlan is just being himself out there. That's just who he is, you know?
Exactly.
And so, you know, for me, you know, I sort of embrace the role of Drapes. Shout out to Tommy Heinsohn, the late great Tommy Heinsohn, because he's the one that gave me, yes, rest in peace. He's the one that gave me that nickname. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to be Mark Jones or this person or this person. I'm going to just be Drapes when I'm on TV. So I would suggest to you guys and people watching, be yourself. People are attracted to personalities. Tons of people can do the job, but personality is what stands out.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. And, you know, I try to be like, when I do broadcast, because me and Jacob here, we actually work for our local media company. It's 321 Media. We're here in Westerly, Rhode Island. So, well, we call games for different high school sports. And whenever I get the task of just being asked to do play-by-play, you know, I try to, you know, be as least professional while still being professional as possible. And I try to bring in as much as my personality as I can, and just, you know, joke around whenever I can. And it's awesome, man. I have so much fun doing it. And that's why I have such a passion, such a drive to, you know, take this profession on to the next level.
Sure.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. You know, one of the guys at NBC, you know, corporate, when he was doing the hiring, he said, Kyle, if a team or station is looking for the traditional cookie cutter play-by-play, there's tons of them out there. But if they're looking for something with somebody with some personality, some enthusiasm, some excitement, there's not that many, and you fit in that category. So I'd rather be sort of unique and, you know what I mean, like stand out. I don't want to be with the herd. I don't want to follow everybody else. And so it's worked out for me in my career so far.
Absolutely. And that's another question that leads me into, getting your job with NBC is, what are anything that I can do or Jacob here could do that kind of gets my name out there, or what led you to getting your job over at NBC?
Well, I think, for me, a lot of what you're seeing now is people are saying things just to be noticed. Mm-hmm. And, to get some clicks, and they don't even believe what half of what they're saying. And so I think for me, and there's multiple different ways to go, you could do that route. But I'm telling you, that becomes exhausting. I think, for you guys, obviously you got to get a reel together, a tape, a link, a demo. But in terms of how to get to this point or how to get to that job, it's hard, boys. Like, I started out in tiny La Crosse, Wisconsin, working 7 days a week. I started in Yakima, Washington, Louisville, Kentucky, smaller cities, and having to work weekends and having to work holidays. But to me, I had a goal in mind. And I would suggest you guys set goals and don't waver from it, because what happens in our business, a lot of times people get burned out. They get tired. They don't want to miss the weddings. They don't want to miss the birthday parties. They want to hang out at night. And then they just sort of, fall off, if you will. Like, for me, I always just kept my head down and just worked, and I knew it would pay off. And I also say, as you're coming up through the ladder, don't say no to anything. Do everything you can. You know what I mean? If somebody presents something, don't be like, well, I don't know. Just do it, because the more you can do it, the better you can become.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Another question I have for you is, what are, like, because you were talking about coming on the come up, just being in these small cities and working these long hours, doing 7 days a week. What are, like, the biggest challenges you have faced since pursuing this career?
I would say, one, the low pay. Like, it's not a lot of money early. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And money never really motivated me. I just loved sports. And then the money came, as you move up. The low pay, I would say the hours, it's sports usually at night. Game Friday night, game Saturday night. Your friends are wanting to go hang out. They want to go to the bar. They want to go to parties and stuff like that, And so your social life suffers. Even to this day, on my job with the Kings, I'm traveling with the team and everything. We're going all over. I'm missing valuable family time. So your personal life suffers. But when I look at it and I say I get to be courtside at NBA games and get paid for it, shoot, awesome. Come on. I mean, come on, man. It's worth it. And so I just say, if you really want to do this, don't give up, man. Because even in I went to a small school in Minnesota, Winona State University, and there were several people, tons of people that wanted to be play-by-play, TV, whatever, media. But as you look at it, they didn't want to work weekends. They didn't want to work nights. So then they got into other things. And so I always knew this is what I wanted to do. Once I made the switch and my major to broadcasting, this is what I wanted to do. And I just stuck with it, man. And there were some rough days, man. Low pay, long hours, but it's all paid off for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And one last thing I have for you is, I mean, you talk about all the challenges and where you are right now, and you're on, like, the highest of highs right now. This is awesome, like, to be where you're at. And, any guy would dream to have your position. So I would love to hear about your first professional break that you had. Like what was that first?
That's a good question.
Yeah. That first professional break, like, for you.
So I've been super fortunate in my career to be in the right place at the right time. And so I started out in college. My senior year in college, I got a part-time job at a local TV station. And I was working 20 hours a week covering sports, filming sports, talking about sports. And then when I graduated, it turned into a full-time job. And then I went to Yakima, Washington, same thing. So everywhere I've been, I've sort of been promoted. But in terms of play-by-play and what I'm doing now, my big break came, I think it was 2017. Mike Gorman needed a day off. He needed a game off. The Celtics were playing the Atlanta Hawks, I think it was. Either Atlanta or Indiana, I can't remember. And they said, hey, Kyle, can you fill in? I'm like, well, I haven't really done play-by-play, but like I said, I'm not turning down anything. So I said, hell yeah, count me in. I'll do it. And my agent at the time, he said, Kyle, all you need is one game. All you need is one game to show people that you can do it. And then things will open up. And so I did that one game. And honestly, fellas, from that one game, you know, it turned into more, obviously, a little bit there in Boston. But I interviewed for the Oklahoma City job back in 2018. Now, mind you, I had only done play-by-play like 3 or 4 times. Interviewed for the Oklahoma City job. And they offered me the job, but I turned it down. And so I guess my big break came from Mike Gorman saying, hey, I need this game off. Kyle, can you fill in? And like I said, I'm not turning that down. And so once I was able to show I could do it, then everything opened up for me.
That's awesome. So it's all about, you know, just showing that you can do it and being that everything guy, you know, showing that you can do everything, whether it's being behind the camera, doing play-by-play, doing a pre and post game show, just showing versatility.
Sideline reporting. Yeah, that's one thing I'm proud of, fellas. I could, you know, in my career, I've sort of done it, you know, sideline, play-by-play, pre and post game, studio, whatever you name, you know, I've been able to do. And I think, you know, not everybody, it's different, man. And you see it now too. You see some studio guys try play-by-play and it's like, I don't know about that. You know what I mean? But to be able to have all those tools in my tool chest, I think that makes me more marketable, makes me more valuable to a company.
Absolutely. Right. And I remember like your first couple games when you actually were doing play-by-play for NBC Sports Boston. I was like, wait a minute, is that Drape? I'm so confused, but I loved it. I'm like, this is great. Like, because I'm watching like post-game shows. I love listening to you in a post-game show. So to have you there with Scal doing like an actual game, like from start to finish, play-by-play, I was like, this is great. I love this. I want to hear more of this. And the fact that you're doing it with Sacramento and you were doing games with Boston, I'm very happy to see that you are doing more play-by-play. And you know, yeah, absolutely. I loved hearing your voice all the time.
Appreciate it, fellas. Yeah, man. And one of the things, you know, I hope when people watch me is that they look at Kyle and say, damn, he's having fun out there, you know, because dude, it's sports, you know what I mean? This ain't rocket science. I ain't trying to explain, you know, the Pythagorean theorem or anything. This is sports, you know, so I try to have fun with it.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
It's awesome to hear the story, honestly, you know, kind of just doing whatever you can to be involved. And, you know, now where your placement is in Sacramento, it's just awesome and remarkable to see the ladder of progress, like just putting in the extra work when people were not working and working days that people didn't want to work. Right. Yeah. So it's cool to hear that, you know, it's possible to do.
Yeah.
You know
and the overall, just the behind the scenes, like insight that we're kind of getting right now. It's just, it's cool. So cool. And it's amazing.
Yeah, people notice, man. Like, people can tell when other people are working hard. You know what I mean? Like, and so for me, it was always, you know, I remember a time I worked in Louisville, Kentucky. It was an ABC TV station. And I was in the sports department and a couple of people quit or got fired or whatever. And I was alone, fellas, in that department for 7 months by myself. Oof. And, you know, they gave me a day off here and there, but for about 7 months, I was working 6 days a week, man. It was brutal, you know, but they saw, you know, yes, they were working me hard and I didn't like it, but, you know, I still did the job and they recognized that. And so even to this day, I could still call on the people I work with in Louisville, you know, if I ever need anything, they're like, oh yeah, Kyle, you're our guy, you know? And so I think people notice that, man. So, you know, the complainers and whiners and all that, I don't think they get very far.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
I agree.
I think just keeping your head down, being humble, and just getting it done, man. People will eventually notice, and you know, I love. Yeah, this is awesome, 100%.
For sure.
Ooh, anything else, boys? Any other questions?
I think that just about covers everything. I am beyond speechless to say that I had Kyle Draper, the man, come on to my show and be able to do such a awesome interview and give me so much insight and this is awesome. I'm just at a loss of words, so I can't thank you enough for coming on.
Yeah, sure.
Anytime, man, and I appreciate you hitting me up. It's it's interesting. If you don't try, if you don't reach out, how will you ever know? And so you text, hit me up on IG. I said, hell yeah, let's do it. So I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did.
Oh man. Well, I mean, it was awesome talking to you, and I know best wishes for you and the rest of your career. And yeah, I mean, this was an awesome interview, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
All right, fellas, appreciate it, man. Light the beam, and Tatum, get better, big fella. Tatum, get well.
Tatum, get better.
All right, boys, thanks so much.
Take care, man.
All right, now. All right.